It is a sunny Tuesday afternoon in October. You are surrounded by dusty books and silence. Suddenly, a commotion breaks out behind you. A young man, thin and unassuming, is tackled by plainclothes agents. But they do not tackle him to stop him from running. They tackle him to stop his hands from closing his laptop. That laptop contains the keys to an empire worth billions of dollars. It contains the power to order assassinations, the ability to move mountains of narcotics across borders, and the private keys to the largest fortune of Bitcoin the world had ever seen. My name is Secretoshi, and this story isn't what you think it is. This was not a drug lord from a violent cartel. This was a physics student who loved Austrian economics. This was the end of the Silk Road. But most people tell this story wrong. They tell you it is a story about drugs. It is not. It is a story about the moment the United States government realized that Bitcoin was not just magic internet money, but the most powerful asset of the 21st century. It is the story of how the FBI went from hunting a criminal to becoming one of the biggest Bitcoin whales in history. And the terrifying part is not what happened in that library, it is what happened to the money afterward. Because right now, as we speak, a wallet controlled by the Department of Justice holds enough Bitcoin to crash the market to zero, and they are moving it. To understand the gravity of this, we have to go back to the year 2011. The financial world was still licking its wounds from the 2008 crash. Trust in banks was at an all-time low. Occupy Wall Street was raging in the parks, and in the dark corners of the internet, a man named Ross Ulbricht was building a libertarian experiment. He called it Silk Road. His vision was simple and in his eyes noble. He believed that if you removed the violence from the drug trade, you could create a perfect free market. No street corners, no gangs, no guns, just a website, an escrow system, and the United States Postal Service. At the heart of this system was a new technology that almost nobody on Wall Street understood: Bitcoin. In 2011, Bitcoin was trading for pennies. It was clumsy, it was difficult to buy, but it had one feature that Ulbricht needed. It was censorship resistant. PayPal would not touch his business, Visa would not touch his business, but Bitcoin did not care. Bitcoin is neutral. It processes a transaction for a hitman just as quickly as it processes a transaction for a charity. Ulbricht combined Bitcoin with the Tor network, which anonymized traffic by bouncing it around the world and created a fortress. For 2 years, this fortress was impenetrable. The Silk Road became the Amazon of vice. It had customer service, vendor ratings, and dispute resolution. It was more professional than most legitimate banks. Ulbricht, operating under the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts, took a commission on every sale. As the price of Bitcoin rose from pennies to $10, then to $100, his fortune ballooned mathematically. He wasn't just wealthy, he was becoming a sovereign power. The authorities were helpless. They could see the website, they could buy the drugs, but they could not find the server and they could not find the man. The Department of Justice, the FBI, the DEA, and the IRS were all scrambling, bumping into each other, trying to crack the code. They were dealing with a new paradigm. They were used to chasing cash in suitcases. They were not ready to chase a digital ghost. But perfection in markets is a myth, and perfection in crime is an impossibility. Ulbricht was a genius, but he was also human. And humans get lonely, humans get arrogant, and humans make mistakes when they are tired. The fortress of encryption that protected the Silk Road was military grade, but the man sitting behind the keyboard had made a slip-up years before the first brick was laid. A tiny digital footprint left T on a coding forum, a cry for help from a novice programmer asking how to connect to a hidden service. This single loose thread was about to be pulled by a relentless IRS agent who was more accountant than super spy. And as he pulled, the entire tapestry began to unravel. But what he didn't know, and what you need to understand, is that while the government was hunting the kingpin to shut him down, there were wolves inside the government's own pack who had a very different agenda. They didn't want to stop the Silk Road. They wanted to rob it. The investigation into the Silk Road was a chaotic mess of interagency rivalry. You had the FBI wanting the glory, the DEA wanting the bust, and the IRS wanting the money. In this chaos, two agents saw an opportunity. Their names were Carl Force and Sean Bridges. Force was a DEA agent, a man accustomed to the gritty underworld of drug busts. Bridges was a Secret Service expert in computer forensics. They were supposed to be the good guys. They were the ones holding the badge. But when you stare into the abyss of unregulatable wealth, the abyss stares back. Force created fake personas on the Silk Road. He convinced Ross Ulbricht that he was a major drug smuggler, a useful ally. He gained Ulbricht's trust. But Force wasn't just gathering evidence. He began selling information to Ulbricht. He sold him details about the investigation in exchange for Bitcoin. He extorted the very man he was supposed to be arresting. He realized that on the blockchain, possession is 9/10 of the law. If he had the private keys, the money was his. Sean Bridges, the tech expert, was even more cold-blooded. He gained access to the administrative accounts of the Silk Road through a seized informant's account. He didn't just watch. He initiated a sweeping theft, draining funds from vendor accounts into his own private wallets. He stole hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of Bitcoin. And then, in a stroke of Machiavellian brilliance, he framed the theft on someone else, causing panic within the marketplace. This is where the story shifts from a crime drama to a lesson in market psychology. Ross Ulbricht, the libertarian idealist, was cracking under the pressure. He saw the theft. He saw the threats. He began to believe that his employees were stealing from him. The smart money logic of the streets took over. Paranoid and desperate, Ulbricht allegedly commissioned hits. He paid for the murder of people he thought had wronged him. He paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in Bitcoin to have them silenced. Here's the irony. The people he paid to commit these murders were often the corrupt agents themselves or police informants. The hits were fake. The photos of the dead bodies were staged with tomato soup and clever lighting. Ulbricht was paying for ghosts to kill ghosts. He was being drained of his fortune by the very system he sought to escape. While Force and Bridges were filling their pockets, the noose was tightening in the physical world. The IRS agent Gary Alford found that old forum post I mentioned earlier. A user named Altoid had asked a coding question and then, in a later post, asked for IT help, giving an email address, rossulbricht@gmail.com. It was sloppy, it was amateur, it was fatal. The FBI traced Ulbricht to San Francisco. They tracked him to a coffee shop, then to a library. They knew they couldn't just kick down his door at home. If they did, he would have time to encrypt his hard drive. If the laptop closed, the evidence and the money would be locked away forever behind complex cryptography that even the NSA couldn't crack in a reasonable time frame. They needed him logged in. They needed the decryption keys resident in the RAM of the computer. So they staged a lover's quarrel. Two undercover agents pretended to fight near his table in the library. It was loud, distracting. Ulbricht looked up. In that split second, another agent slid the laptop away from both. It was open. He was logged in as Dread Pirate Roberts. The chat windows were open. The administrative panel was visible. It was over, or so they thought. They had the man, they had the server, but there was a problem that keeps sophisticated investors awake at night even today. When they seized the laptop, they found millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. But they knew there was more, much more. The Silk Road had processed over 9 million Bitcoin in its lifetime. Where was the rest of it? And more importantly, what happens when the US government seizes an asset that was designed explicitly to be unseizable? The arrest of Ross Ulbricht was a headline. The seizure of the Silk Road server was a trophy. But the real story, the one that affects your portfolio today, was the seizure of the assets. The FBI found themselves in possession of 144,000 Bitcoin. At the time, this was a massive percentage of the total supply. The United States government had accidentally become one of the largest venture capitalists in the crypto space. But remember the corrupt agents, Force and Bridges? They thought they had gotten away with it. They were counting their digital coins, washing them through exchanges, transferring them to offshore accounts. But the blockchain remembers everything. That is the double-edged sword of Bitcoin. It is anonymous, yes, but it is also a public ledger. Every movement is etched in stone forever. Suspicion grew, the numbers didn't add up. Other agents began looking at the flow of funds. They saw transactions that shouldn't have happened. They traced the IPs, and they found that the calls were coming from inside the house. Force and Bridges were arrested. They went to prison. The government seized their stolen Bitcoin too. The hoard grew larger. Now look at this from a smart money perspective. The government had a choice. They held an asset that many in Washington called rat poison. They could have destroyed the private keys, effectively burning the Bitcoin and reducing the supply. That would have been the ideological move. But the government loves revenue more than it hates ideology. They decided to auction it. In 2014 and 2015, the U.S. Marshals Service held a series of auctions to sell off the Silk Road Bitcoin. This was the moment smart money truly entered the room. Who bought it? It wasn't retail investors. It wasn't you or me. It was Tim Draper, the legendary venture capitalist. He bought nearly 30,000 Bitcoin at around $600 a coin. He saw what the government didn't. He saw that the government legitimizing the sale of Bitcoin was the ultimate proof of concept. If the feds could sell it, it was property. If it was property, it was legal. The auctions dispersed the initial hoard. But the story didn't end there, because not all the coins were found in 2013. Ulbricht had cold storage. Hackers had stolen funds. The Silk Road ecosystem was a mess of missing millions. For years, thousands of Bitcoin sat dormant in wallets labeled 1HQ3 by blockchain watchers. We call these zombie coins. Everyone knew they were proceeds of crime, but nobody knew who held the keys. Then, in November 2020, the ground shook. The wallet moved. Nearly $1 billion worth of Bitcoin moved for the first time in 7 years. Twitter panic ensued. Was Ross hacking from prison? Was a quantum computer breaking the code? No, it was the Department of Justice again. They had tracked down another hacker, a mysterious figure known as Individual X, who had stolen funds from the Silk Road years prior. They squeezed him, and he handed over the keys. Suddenly, the US government was back in the game. They were holding a bag worth billions. And this brings us to the present danger. The government is not a diamond-handed hodler. They are a bureaucratic machine with a mandate to liquidate seized assets. We are currently in a situation where the United States government holds over 200,000 Bitcoin, seized from the Silk Road, from the Bitfinex hack, and from other cases. They are one of the largest whales in existence. And unlike a hedge fund that cares about market impact or a believer who wants the price to go up, the government is a non-economic actor. They don't care about the chart. They don't care about support levels. They just want to close the case and deposit the dollars into the Treasury Forfeiture Fund. In 2024, we have seen small test transactions. We have seen movements to Coinbase Prime. Every time one of these wallets wakes up, the on-chain alerts go red. The fear is palpable. If the DOJ decided to market dump their entire stack tomorrow, it would absorb all the liquidity in the order books. It would send the price crashing down, liquidating leveraged traders and causing a panic cascade. They are the sword of Damocles hanging over the market. It is the ultimate irony. Bitcoin was created to escape the government. It was nurtured on the Silk Road to facilitate trade outside of the government's eyes. And now the government holds the keys to the kingdom. They profited from the crime more than the criminal did. Ross Ulbricht is serving 2 life sentences plus 40 years without the possibility of parole. He will die in a concrete box. Meanwhile, the state that imprisoned him is sitting on a fortune generated by his creation, slowly selling it off to fund their operations. So, what is the lesson here for the intelligent investor? It is that morality and markets rarely align. The market does not care where the coins came from. It only cares about supply and demand. The Silk Road proved that Bitcoin worked. It proved it was durable. It survived the attack of the most powerful government on Earth. But it also taught us that the blockchain is transparent. If you think you are hiding, you are wrong. You need to watch the government wallets. You need to understand that these coins are not lost. They are merely waiting. They are a supply shock waiting to happen. The smart money monitors these addresses like a hawk. When the DOJ moves coins, we don't ask about justice. We ask about liquidity. The saga of the Silk Road is a tragedy for Ross Ulbricht, a windfall for the US Treasury, and a constant threat for the Bitcoin market. If you want to stay ahead of the whales and understand the flows that truly drive this market, make sure you are subscribed. The market is a zero-sum game. Don't be the liquidity, be the market maker. I'll see you in the next one.